Shari Lapena, author of An Unwanted Guest, Doubleday Canada, Tristan Osler, An Unwanted Guest, by Shari Lapena, Doubleday Canada, 304 pages, $24.95, Doubleday Canada. About 4 years ago, Toronto author Shari Lapena and her husband, Manuel, bought a 100-acre farm, situated north of Cobourg, ONT. They're slowly renovating the charming Victorian brick house that had stood uninhabited there for several years. The roof leaks and it will need more structural work before the couple's long-term plans, including a writer's office for Lapena, are realized. But, in a bloody way, the abandoned property has already paid off. The house's grand centerpiece is a carved wooden staircase. From its landing, there are servants' quarters and a back staircase that sneaks into the kitchen. Originally, the layout would have allowed domestic servants to discreetly move around the home with minimal interruption to their employers' lives. But for Lapena, it offered a more sinister idea. "I knew someone was going to have to die at the bottom of the staircase," she says. Article continued below. Lapena is obviously not a murderer, but she gets into the mind of one with her new mystery thriller, An Unwanted Guest. With her 2 international best-selling books, The Couple Next Door and A Stranger in the House, the former lawyer and English teacher quickly established herself as one of Canada's most exportable writers. But while those titles slot neatly into the popular domestic thriller category, with comparisons to Gillian Flynn and Paula Hawkins, An Unwanted Guest harkens back to the grand dame of mystery, Agatha Christie. In writing her new page-turner, Lapena desired a break from the husband-wife plots of her domestic thrillers, though romantic relationships still play a key role here. She wanted to stretch her chops by writing a closed-room mystery. Similar to Christie's 1939 novel, And Then There Were None, in which a group of people are summoned to an isolated island and are slowly killed off, there are the clues and red herrings, Lapena says. "I wanted to take that idea, modernize it, make it more edgy with psychological underpinnings. Make it darker and grittier, told from multiple perspectives." An Unwanted Guest opens as a group of guests arrives for a weekend getaway at Mitchell's Inn, a remote resort tucked in the Catskill forests. If the inn conjures the old-school ambient glamour of a Christie novel, it's not by coincidence. Last fall, Lapena attended a crime writers' conference in Istanbul, where she stayed at the Para Palace Hotel, in a room across the hall from where Christie famously wrote her 1934 novel, Murder on the Orient Express. "It was fabulous," Lapena says. "I wanted that ambience in my hotel." Some of Lapena's characters are vacationing at the Mitchells Inn for romance, or with hopes of rekindling a spark, while others, including a defense lawyer and a former war correspondent dealing with PTSD, are searching for a brief respite from their tortured lives. But after a scream shatters their peace, and the body of a beautiful guest is found at the bottom of the inn staircase, relaxation and pampering are out of the question. Especially after a second body, that of a mysterious novelist who has sequestered herself to her room to write, it is discovered. Lapena had several challenges to overcome in creating a contemporary twist on an established genre. Given how connected her characters would be to the outside world thanks to smartphones and laptops, she needed to make communication impossible, and to drain their devices' battery power. She found inspiration in the winter storm of 2013, during which the eastern part of Canada froze to a standstill under a blanket of treacherous ice. "Good thing about an ice storm is that it takes down all the wires and the power goes out for days," says Lapena. It gave enough time to have these people isolated and to get the job done. Given that Lapena is self-admittedly not a plot planner and prefers to let a premise lead, she found An Unwanted Guest much more challenging than her previous works. She estimates she wrote about 20 iterations, dropping characters and plot lines. In fact, she was already closing in on the end of the manuscript when she finally settled on which guests were going to die, and who would become the ultimate baddie. "The hardest thing was that you write it, and as soon as you change one thing, you have to go back and see where was so-and-so and what did they see, and who was watching them," says Lapena. "I really respect Agatha Christie and her brain. I don't know how she did it, time after time. Sue Carter is the editor of Quill and Choir.